Okay, you were tuned to 90.3 WZBC in Newton. And it is now time for Expanding Awareness, in which I most often do conduct live interviews, either on some aspect of the paranormal. I might feature holistic health programs, and we cover animal rights from time to time, and progressive ideas and such. And with us in studio is Yulia Cohen, and she is a healer and a medical intuitive and a pioneering researcher in the fields of energy psychology and energy medicine with over 30 years experience. She is internationally known as an expert in the area of anxiety and trauma, and as an intuitive coach for individuals and also for businesses. She formerly was a computer scientist and an engineer. She's founder of the Energy Reconstructing Institute, and has developed energy reconstructing systems which instantly, reliably, and effortlessly creates changes and healing. And she has enabled thousands of people to heal from the most severe fears, anxiety, and trauma in a way that is safe, lasting, and in a sense of ease. She has written for various journals on science, spirituality, and transformation, quantum health, and Choice Point, among other things. She's a speaker and presenter at conferences here and abroad, where she likes to address some of the most challenging issues we face in dealing with mental health. And we will be shedding light this morning on the topic of suicide. So, good morning to you.
Good morning, Victor.
Okay, how do we begin to address the matter of suicide?
Well, let me begin maybe by talking a little bit about me and my background,
Sure.
because it's informative to what I do and how I do. I was born in Russia in the family of physicists, and I was studying civil engineering in Russia. And then when I came to the States, I studied computer science at Brandeis, and I worked as a researcher for Siemens Research Institute in Princeton. And what happened was basically my healing journey became with me discovering that I grew up a thyroid tumor, and I couldn't have children. I was married at that time, and the doctors couldn't help me in a way that made sense to me, because I couldn't understand the reasons that something grew in my body. They just wanted to remove it. And as a researcher, my job to always find reasons for why things happen. So that's kind of where we parted way, and I started looking for other solutions. I have 2 children right now. And at some point, I realized that there was a calling, because people were approaching me to find out how I dealt with my condition. And I remember when I was switching over from computer science, which was a reputable occupation, to something, to this kind of strange energy healing field that at that point was viewed as snake oil sort of remedies, was not looked really well upon. I had a contract with God, and I said I will switch on 2 conditions. I want to do things that are not done already, right? Because if they're done already, why should I be switching from a good profession that pays me good money? So I want to do something new. I want to do something different, and I want to meet a need that already exists. I don't want to walk around trying to convince people that they need something that they really don't. So I want to find solutions for needs that already exist, and try to do it in a way that new ways. And that's something that informed most of my life looking back. And so I have this tendency of tackling issues that may be not well understood, issues that may be an epidemic. And actually, I want to point out that in the medical field, if something is an epidemic, it usually means that we don't have the right medication to treat it, right? Because if we do have a right medication, it's not an epidemic. So if we have a suicidal epidemic or mental illness epidemic, I see it as pointing to the fact that the tools that have taken us so far don't work.
All right, and what did you discover as an alternative?
So what I try to do, I try to understand what actually happens, and in order to do that, I have worked very hard on developing an ability to see energy. And it's almost like when you debug computer science programs, you really need to be able to figure out what is connected to what. And with in an energy field, it's easier because you can actually learn to see energy. And so based on what I see, I start deconstructing things. And then I came up with ways where I can see things actually work. And when you see how it works, you can sort of work backwards. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so the first thing I want to start with, I think there is a lack of understanding of what happens to people who have this tendency to think about the suicide. There's awareness of a certain aspect of that, and you probably I don't know if you agree with me. Like people think, okay, it's loneliness, right? It's depression.
For some, it may be.
For some, right? It's kind of just emotional anguish. Maybe they have this things happening in life, like loss of money, loss of job, right? Loss of a relationship. So it's understandable they're in this difficult place in life and they give up. And like you said, maybe it is true for some people, but that's not kind of the crux of the matter. That's not what happens with I think majority of people. And if you look at the recent suicides of celebrities, and that's how I sort of started thinking about having this this what are we doing interview? What is it? What do you call? Come to your show. The recent suicides of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, and I'll be also talking about Robin Williams. For none of them, it was true.
And also, there was this fifth grader who was bullied, and the kids would say things to her like, "Oh, if I look like you, I would kill myself.
Exactly.
Why don't you kill yourself?"
Yeah.
So we have young people who are bullied and take their lives.
Yeah, and I will talk about that too. That some of it, like at the basis of it, there's always accumulated trauma. But at the time when it happens, it doesn't always look like it's because of that, right? So for that kid, it looks, yes, this person was bullied. This kid was bullied. But if you look at Anthony Bourdain, if you look at Kate Spade, if you look at Robin Williams, at their life before they took their life, right? That was not true. They had money, they had family, people loved them. All of them, people loved immensely, so which says that something else is going on. And if you read the interviews or listen to the interviews of people who knew them, they will say something like, they were fighting some demons. Mm-hmm. They kind of all say that. And we sort of, I think, brush it away because, they were fighting some demons. But what I want to do today is to shed a light on the fact that demon aspect, or you could just, use different words, but darker energies or darker dimensions and realms are actually a reality, and if we do not address that, then we'll probably failing in understanding how to prevent suicide, or just even like deal with this whole issue. I think it's a very crucial, very central part of understanding how to address this problem. So basically, so I'm going to segue from demons in the why actually people take their life is so loneliness can be one aspect, sort of depression can be another aspect because of life circumstances. But what happens in my experience, and I have worked with, I would say, because of the work I do, because I work with complex trauma, because people usually find me where they've tried everything else and it didn't work, I would say that most of the people I work with are being suicidal, are kind of at that level. And the reason they are is because for them, living in their body is unbearable. It's unbearable not just emotionally, but it's unbearable physically. And I think that there is lack of appreciation of how incredibly unbearable life is for people in their body before they either commit suicide or when they contemplate committing suicide. So that's an important aspect of addressing this problem.
Yeah, I mean, a big one is avoiding pain. I mean, like Robin Williams did not want to see himself deteriorate and be, disabled. Hunter S. Thompson was another one who chose that, and I have a close friend who shot herself because she was just racked with pain. And I know this sounds trite, but one time I sprained my ankle and I had to walk on it for a long time. And it was one of the worst pains I've had. And I would say to my roommate, shoot me,
Yeah. And it kind of opens a bigger question because should we, is part of dealing with this issue, is a conversation about addressing the right of a person to live. Do we have to suffer to such a degree? Can we have a choice? Right. Because if things are done from that place, and I will explain why, it will make a big difference. The way you transition, whether you transition from a place of darkness or you transition from a place of choice, from a place of light, surrounded by your family, where it is a family decision. It's kind of people who are fighting for the right of euthanasia. It's sort of a similar thing by saying, let us have a choice. Let's make it kind of one way of transiting from one world to another. So it could be done differently, but for people like that. But for the rest of the people, if we understand what happens with them, if we understand that part of it is accumulated trauma that they haven't been able to heal because the tools that are available are not sufficient, the understanding that's available is not sufficient, then we can save those people from suicides that are truly needless. To sort of make it clear what I'm talking about, and you brought the issue of the kid that has been bullied, trauma is cumulative. Mm-hmm. So when somebody being bullied over and over, the best metaphor for it is you are trying to rise above the feelings, right? So you're being bullied and you try to get over it, right? And then you're being bullied and you try to get over it. And the over it is very literal. And the best metaphor I have that have helped a lot of my clients is if you think of Hurricane Harvey, And if you think that, like, first the wind came and they sort of knocked you out. They knocked the roof out, they knocked the doors out. So almost like when it happens the first time, you just go like, whoa, what was that? And the pieces of you literally just from the shock, just you fragment. But then what happens is emotional flooding from repeated bullying. And it's like water starts coming. And the first floor is not safe anymore. So you go above it to the second floor. And then the second floor becomes not safe anymore, and you go to the third floor. And then the third floor is not safe anymore because the water is rising. And you go to the fourth floor, and then there's a roof. And then you're on the roof, and there's no place to go.
Right.
And if you look at the pictures, you can go on the internet and look at the pictures of people standing on the roof during flooding and waiting to be saved. You can't tell them, be strong, just be strong, you'll be okay, just be strong. But if water continues coming, there's really no place to go anymore.
Right.
Until somebody comes and saves you. Or until somebody comes and makes the water recede so that you can come back to the solid ground. And another day I was talking to all of my clients, and I was, because he said, I can't explain, to people what's going on with me. And I said, well, I usually use this metaphor. And he said, oh my God, I feel exactly the same way. Like he said, my metaphor is I'm in the water and I am desperately paddling, right, with my arms, my head stuck out as far out as I can, so it creates this incredible tension and incredible pulling out of my body, and my legs that are also paddling. I don't feel the ground at all, and I'm trying to get to the place where I could get on the firm ground, and I can't. So another part of this metaphor is understanding that when people are on a roof, committing suicide does not feel as a big step because they're already so high up. It's
right.
A very tiny little step. So when people say, how could they do it? Easy. At that point, it doesn't seem like a big deal because you're pretty much out of your body already, and going a little bit higher just doesn't seem like it is such a big deal.
Yeah. What do you say to people who say they took the coward's way out?
And I think that's probably why I'm so passionate about talking about this issue, because and I will talk about it later, that if somebody did commit suicide, the place that they end is already not a really great place. So adding...
But is that always true? What about a monk that ameliorates themselves, burns themselves for as a protest against the Vietnam War?
Well, actually, it's very interesting that the other point is you start looking at the spiritual tradition, and that's various religious traditions and how they treat suicide. And for example, even in Jewish tradition, and I'm Jewish, suicide is not allowed. It's not allowed to such a degree that if someone committed suicide, they will not be buried. It's also true for...
But that's not true.
What?
I mean, meaning that rule doesn't really work.
In the Orthodox tradition,
or in a
buried.
lot of religions, I mean, they have these beliefs that are limiting, right? You kill yourself, you go to hell or something, right?
Yeah.
But that's not reality.
Well, that's what I want to do. I want to address today which part of it is a reality and which part of it is not a reality. Because I was raised an atheist, but after doing being in this field for over 30 years, I realized that when there is a certain custom or there's certain prohibition, there's usually some truth to it. It may not be entire truth, but there is something. So I stopped being very radical, and I kind of walk in gently, and I look around, and I try to see what was the original intent, and then it helps me. It kind of navigates me to see what the issues are. So I would say the way they sort of warn you against doing certain things is both true and not true, right? And so they're warning you against something, but on the other hand, my job as a healer, whatever happened, my job is to heal it and make it right. So it still can be made right. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So in that way, I would prefer if in our spiritual traditions there were means to do things right, not just prohibitions, which is what I found. So let me just kind of go with this Jewish tradition, just to eliminate the point. So they basically say if somebody tries to forcefully convert you from your tradition, right, into another tradition, you can convert to save your life. Like, it's fine. You still kind of practice secretly, but, life is important. But if you feel that it's unbearable to live not being true to God, then it's okay. But the person is taking their life, it's almost kind of going to the light. They have a connection into the light to connect to God. It's a very different state of mind for when you decide to do it, as opposed to someone who's been bullied, right? Mm-hmm. And there is incredible trauma, negativity surrounding them that hasn't been healed. There's a lot of darkness in bullying. There's like, who are the people that need to do that? What kind of energies are involved? They just basically want to destroy another person. So you already start entering sort of this darker, shady realms that actually exist. And I feel that when a person dies, they take all that energy with them. And they sort of end in a place that reflects that energy. So it's not that they just simply go to hell. I think the definition of hell is that there's a lot of darkness involved in this kind of situations, and you live from darkness and you end in darkness because nothing sort of got healed and nothing got solved.
Yeah, I would call it like the lower astral plane that
exactly.
you could end up at.
Yeah. And so what's interesting, you brought up Robin Williams. And when I really started thinking about it, when I was watching his film, What Dreams May Come, and in a dream, the hero is, I think his name is Chris, and he played by Robin Williams, and he dies from an accident, and because he dies a natural death, he goes into sort of like a place of light, which I think it's I think people who die from accident, they still sometimes need some help getting to the light, but basically that's where he goes. And because it didn't come from an intentional place, right?
Right.
But then, and I think before that, the kids die. So then he dies. So of course, his wife is in this place of utter despair, and she takes her life. And so I think soon after he dies. And the guide in the heaven, whatever place Robin Williams is in, tells him that his wife committed suicide and he wants to connect to her, and he said, you can't, because she's in this very dark place. So it's kind of in a special realm, right? And I think in Tibetan tradition they're called the Bourdain planes, right? The planes, the different planes that the spirit can go.
Right.
And he said it's very dangerous to go to that place. It's hard to get a person out of that place, and it's very dangerous to go in because you will get pulled in, and it will be hard for you to come out.
So where does the healing take place? I mean, one doesn't stay in a dark place forever, ever, right?
I wonder if I kind of wasn't like thinking that far, because again, my job as a healer when I encounter that is to go and help the person to get out of that place. But my sense is that when they reincarnate again, they have this like extra baggage. There's an unsolved issue, which they sort of come already at the disadvantage of having to still process and finish all that stuff. And I don't know karmically what that would express in, but what it would express as when they're born. But in a sense, it doesn't go away, I believe, unless the person is being helped. And that element where the spirit guide tells him you have to be careful because you can get pulled in is a very important element, because that realm has that quality. It has a quality of pulling you in, and once you get in touch with that, even by looking at it, you can get pulled in. And I think that's why a lot of in a lot of this religious communities, there's a reluctance to deal with those realms. People don't have a particular training, and so there's probably an understanding that this is a dangerous thing to do, and it's better not to go there at all. And I was actually wondering, I mean, I know that I always wonder when you go through an experience like this as an actor, and if the realm is real, right?
Yeah.
Whether, and I think Robin Williams was a character actor, which means he would totally step into being a character. I always wonder, of course, you wouldn't know, whether that impacted him. Like when he committed suicide, that was my first thought. I know that he was in pain, but there's also some of the relatives said that he was struggling again with some demons, that it wasn't just his fear of how it's going to be, but he would go into a dark place. That's what they say. And I only, I left to wonder, but my thought was dark place is the place that he connected to when he was playing this role in the movie, because that realm is real. And I just want to illustrate it with a very interesting example. I had the client once, he came to me and he said, I'm going to tell you something and it will sound really strange. And I'm like, okay, try me. And he said, I don't have a particular reason, and he said, it's been going for like number of years. There is that place that I sometimes connect to, and it feels like I want to kill myself. Like it's a thought. I really don't want to kill myself, but it's kind of the thought that pulls me in. And I feel that's like it happens over and over again. And so I, did you want to say something?
Like a lot of people who have schizophrenia hear voices, and often they may be told to, kill themselves, right?
Yeah, I can talk about it separately if we have time, but this okay. person was not schizophrenic. This is a very normal, completely clear-minded person with no particular medical condition that would make him think about that. That's why he was very self-conscious saying that. He said, I know it's going to sound very strange, and I've never told this to anyone, because how can you exactly your point. How can you say something like that to a doctor without them thinking that you're schizophrenic? And so I said to him, okay, tune into the thought, and I will tune with you. And I felt that energy. I felt the energy of that plane.
Okay.
And I said, have you ever tried to commit suicide? And he said, no. And I said, okay, so that's kind of really strange, because you've connected to that realm that was shown in that movie that Robin Williams played in. And without actually having an experience, I don't understand how you connected to it. And that's what's pulling you in. The realm has that quality to pull in, but I'm confused how you connected to it. He said, oh, I know how that happened. I know exactly. And he said I was sort of like not in so good place in my life, emotional, I was a little depressed. And his relative, either his distant cousin or someone like that, committed suicide.
Oh.
And when he did that, I had the thought, he went ahead of me.
Right.
I wonder what that place is like. I wonder where he is. Do you see how powerful it is? And he connected to that place, and since then, that place never left him. Because it's like a lot of people don't know how to get information without actually sticking their nose in their face and most of their body in that energy. If you explore things like that, realms like that, you have to be very careful. That's sort of part of the system that I developed by using energetic membranes and separation. And so basically now he was connected to it, and what we did, we created the separation.
Now we're going to take some. The person, hold the line. This reminds me of the poet Anne Sexton was a friend of Sylvia Plath, who killed herself, and Anne Sexton once said she did what I would have wanted to do, is kill herself, and like you said, somebody went ahead and did that.
Yeah.
Okay, the number here is 617-552-4686, 617-552-4686, and we are discussing the spiritual aspect of suicide for this morning's program, and my guest for the program is Yulia Cohen. And let's take this call. Good morning, you're on the air with Yulia.
Yes, good morning, Victor. It's Mark calling in.
Hey, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Lydia. It's a very, very thought-provoking show, very moving, and I wanted to ask, what advice do you have, or what would you say to those that are left behind to pick up the pieces after a loved one commits suicide?
Right. Yeah, I was going to, it's a very important question. I was going to get to it towards the end, but it looks like, I didn't
Okay,
notice.
And I'll listen on the radio.
No,
Thank you so
it's
much.
okay. It's okay. I can address it now if the question came up. So once you realize that that realm is actual and that realm is there, that's the first step. And so the kind of two aspects of it. One, that in a sense, a person, like once it happened and a person made the decision, okay, they just made the decision. They didn't make this decision to the family members. They didn't do it to anyone. You kind of need to trust that they were at the place of utter desperation.
Yeah, like Kate left a note saying to her daughter that it's not your fault.
Yeah. It's like you need to believe that they could find no way of being in the body. And a different issue is that how we change the way we understand and heal trauma so that people don't get to that place. And, how we listen deeply, what questions we need to ask them, and mainly, how do you get them back in on the safe ground? So you need to understand they're out of their body, they're high up on the roof. Living there, it's unbearable because our bodies are not designed to live that way. And I have an entire research. If people email me or call me afterwards, we'll give the phone number. I can send you the link to the research where basically majority of spiritual traditions, they know about the 4-step way in which people live their bodies, and they use it to regulate meditation practices so that people don't get cuckoo, while doing that. So, because people tend to live just from doing meditation practices, and then they have all kind of strange experiences, not just from trauma. So that is not well understood. The first thing to do is to get people back in and to heal the trauma that needs to be healed, to get them back down on a solid ground. And a lot of time, because that's what I listen to, I do also a lot of phone calls. So I might not even see a person, but when they start describing their symptoms, oftentimes I will ask, have you thought of killing yourself? And there'll be this careful pause on the other line, and they say, why? Why are you asking me? I think the reason they're asking me, there are a couple reasons. One, at that point, a lot of therapists refuse to work with them because they basically say, okay, you have to check in a hospital, you have to go to a professional. Basically, I think it's like I will refuse to work with them, and they will have to go to the hospital. That's sort of mainly their concerns. And what I tell them is, the symptoms that you describe to me make me, understand that because of the accumulated trauma, you are not in the body. You kind of mostly out, and you have excruciating discomfort from being in that state. So everybody who is in that place where you are, think and feel about stopping it, because it's impossible to live that way, and it's normal. So the first thing I said, it is normal. It's not a big deal. You are not the only one like that. So what we need to do, we need to heal you as fast as we can to get you back into the body. And as soon as you get in, you will stop wanting to do that, and you'll stop feeling that. And so that's a conversation that would be helpful. And when you think about the symptoms that those people report, will be they don't feel much circulations in their legs and arms, right? Like that would be the first one, because they're really not in the body, they're ungrounded. Most of their attention will be on top of their heads, so they'll have like splitting headaches. They will have, sometimes they'll be diagnosed with TMJ because the whole jaw is locked. Their throat will be locked. They wouldn't be able to sleep. There's kind of burning sensation in the brain. There's some thoughts that never leave them. It's when you touch a head, the sort of top part of the body in a person like that, my first feeling is like, I don't know how you survived this far with so much physical and emotional anguish, and that if you understand the system, that can be corrected. So that addresses the fact, saying like you said, they're coward, or how did you do that? And the other part, realizing that they went to the darker place, because they were surrounded by those energies that actually at that point were pulling them out. And then all the guilt and of the survivors. So I'm talking about it actually from first-hand experience because my father committed suicide. And my father committed suicide. He was a scientist, and he got to a point in his life where his kind of brain wasn't working anymore. And I'm not sure he was telling us the whole truth of what was going on with him, but he really wasn't able to function and think. But he never told us. He was going to doctors. He never told us what it was. And I was wondering myself, he kind of never knew how to just take a walks, play with, with his grandchildren, like how was he supposed to recover? So, so there were different like warning signs before that, which you sort of in your own family sometimes like you don't think of it, though I did wonder, but I just kind of never thought of that. But as soon as it happened, right in the hospital, I put my hands on him and I started sending him back to the light. Mm-hmm. But just basically, okay, you did it. It doesn't matter. I mean, I had all these emotions, but I had to put my emotions aside. And I was just seeing this. It's almost like, when people, let's say there's a plane crash, right? People will have vigils. They'll light candles, they'll gather together, they'll send huge energy of love and light to these people who just dropped and completely probably scattered so that the souls can come back together and cross over. And that does not always happen for suicide victims. And you kind of need something like that to happen. And my thing was go in peace. Go in peace. You made this decision. Don't worry about us. Whatever support and understanding you have, we give you, even though emotionally I was going, of course, through a lot of feelings and going, for quite a while after that. And what is interesting is like talking about the cultures, that when he belonged to an Orthodox synagogue and when I called the rabbi for a burial, he said that he didn't think that he could bury him at an Orthodox cemetery.
See, that seems just so wrong.
Yeah, but let me finish you the story.
Okay.
But he said, but let me think about it. Let me just check things. Let me not say anything right away. I'll call you tomorrow. And when I worked on my father, it wasn't just in the hospital. It's just like I continue was being in that state where sort of like opening gates of heaven, right? Just go, clearing the darkness, like clearing the place where he did it, clearing the emotions that he brought into doing that, just giving light and love to all of that. And the next day, Rabbi called me and he said, I checked, I kind of felt into his energy, and for some reason I feel that it's okay. So they may not always, know how to explain that. Yeah. But he said it looks like there was something else was going on with him, that he kind of needed to do it. It's almost he read that message that I put into the energy of light, and he said, I feel like I can do it in his case.
And I think if more people had a spiritual perspective that death is not a permanent vacation,
right,
they wouldn't so much attempt it. Now, I studied a little bit with the Reverend Gladys Custance of a spiritualist church, and she talked about tuning into somebody who had committed suicide, and they said to her, it didn't work. Like they were still there.
Exactly.
With all the emotion, with all the trauma, and losing the body, like didn't help their state.
Exactly. And usually I'm going to read the poem that I wrote to kind of sum up what I tell to people I heal. I can hear your voices, I can hear your cries. I will be there with you when you're lost and scared, watching the world through your eyes. I know you tried to ignore them. I know you really tried. I will show you how to get rid of them. I will show you how to take back the control of your mind. So this the people who surrounded by these voices, once they connected to that realm, who encouraged them to do it. And I saved numerous lives by basically telling the truth. And I say exactly just what that spiritual person told you. I said, if I know you want to end your suffering, and if killing yourself would really do it, I would say go ahead, it's an option. Right?
Yes.
But I say, but it's not. And what I will do, I will show you where you will end up. And using my techniques, I safely show them what that place will look like.
But again, not everybody, in my understanding, ends up in the same dark place. I mean, doesn't one's attitude, why they're doing it?
Exactly.
Again, like an end to pain, Again, I wanted someone to shoot me because I was in such pain.
But again, you want to end the pain from a right place, not from a place of darkness, depression. Do you see what I'm saying? And demons.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the conversation with the family and support can help. And just like forbidding people to do that is not a solution, because they end up in the worst place as a result of it. Exactly. So it's different for different people. Usually the ones who come to me, they are in a dark place. They are desperate, and showing them what it is saves their life. And we start having a discussion by saying, have a relationship to that place.
Okay, let's take this call.
I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you help people get back into their bodies. And I'll listen off the telephone.
Okay, thank you. So in my work, he's like my pet peeve. There's a bigger issue on how the healing therapies mostly work today, and it's changing. It's kind of going in the right direction, but mostly the focus has been on release, right? Release this, release that. If I let go of this, if I let go of that, well, that is not helpful to people who are so traumatized that they're out of the body. Like, release what? You're already not in the body. You're already barely connecting. What are you going to release? It's actually a very dangerous. It would be very dangerous kind of approach or a healing modality. For someone. It also doesn't work to tell them to think positively, as I said, because when you're on the roof...
No, that's like saying, smile, when you're very depressed,
Yeah.
The last thing you want somebody to say to you.
Right. So I have a book that's called Energetic Membranes, The New Paradigm of Effortless Healing. And part of my system is that we have a physical body that's protected by the skin. We also have an energetic body, and that body is also protected by the skin. It has a membrane, just like a cell. That information is mostly not known. It got channeled through me over 20 years ago when I was praying to God to really show me what it takes to for us to heal in a more efficient way. And when that membrane is activated, it will start pulling in all the fragments of you and all the energies of you that are scattered due to trauma, like due to hits in life that sort of happen and break your vessel. And that happens very effortlessly. You don't have to do anything. The membrane knows how to track that energy and how to bring it in, and where in the body it goes. It's just kind of this mechanism, this wonderful mechanism we're completely not aware of, and it completely changes the way we can heal. So that's one part, is taking care of fragmentation. And the other part, so that's kind of like when a hurricane hits, right, and everything like breaks, the roof goes off. So that takes care of that. And the other part of my research is the book that I haven't finished writing yet. It's on about the 4 levels of displacement that I call it the 4 gates to wholeness that exist, that are in our body, the actual diaphragms. And they lock as they push us out as a protection mechanism. So that is not very well used in trauma, though in spiritual traditions it's a known mechanism. And I teach people that I work with about the gates. And We work on it every session, and the gates tell us which part is still out of the body, because it's kind of not the whole person. There's like the essence of the person is out, but then the various parts that are out. So, for example, you have to be pretty out to contemplate a suicide. So I'll take like a case I was working this year with. So you have to pretty much out to attempt a suicide. You attempt a suicide, then you end up in a certain place, right? After you attempt it, it's like it's a new place that you haven't been before in. It's a different level of being out, right? Because you've done it. Now you've survived it. Like with this person, they survived. You end up in a hospital, connected to tubes, because this person was overdosing on pills, and this person freaked out. He freaked out because the first reaction is, I'm in the worst place. At least before, I wasn't lying in bed connecting to tubes. Now I'm connected to tubes. And the second thought was, I failed again. I everything I've done in my life, I failed, right? I failed keeping myself together. I failed in being able to continue with my job. I failed in being able to continue functioning. I couldn't exercise anymore. I couldn't sleep anymore. Like, I failed at everything. And now I failed even at committing suicide. And just from that thought, another, whatever was left of him, another part left. So it was interesting because you learn a lot of it. I learned backwards, right? It's like, okay, let's get this person back together and let's look at all the things we need to do to get them back together. And then you discover all the steps and all the layers of what it takes to actually get someone in. And because you're watching the gates until the first gate, which is at your pelvis, opens up and the energy comes in all the way to the feet. And you start feeling circulation in your body, right? In your legs and your arms, and they become warm. You know you're not finished. So it's not like you're imagining, oh, you did the soul retrieval and you brought some energy in and you're done. No, you're done when the person is in and their particular, you look for particular physical symptoms and emotional symptoms of them being in. And so you keep going, you keep looking for more energies, for more parts, for all. So some parts, I say, they're like, they scattered, but then some parts are just out vertically. So there's vertically and then like all over the place. Yeah. So I hope I answered the person's question. It's the mechanism is straightforward. Going about it, you have to have a certain skill, develop a certain skill, but at least if we can hope to shed light on some understanding of what needs to be done, then it's already a good step in the right direction.
Okay, we're out of time here. I want to ask you if you could come back next week.
Do we want to continue?
Yes, because there's a lot yet to cover, a lot that I didn't get a chance to ask.
Yeah, no, I have like 4 more pages of
yes.
stuff. And
yeah, so can you come back for part 2?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. That was the first time in our history with you.
Right. Okay, where can people get in touch with you for your services? Yeah.
Okay, so my phone number is, I don't know, can we give the phone number?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's 617-731-9529. And my website is, of course, Healing Without Effort, because that's kind of my life is dedicated to understanding universal laws and principles. And when you do, healing becomes virtually effortless in a way that your body does not resist it. It's kind of it feels natural to your body. And my email is yulia@yuliacohen.com, and if you go on the website,
you'll have to spell Yulia.
Well, if you go to the website Healing Without Effort, you will find my name and a way to contact me. And there are a lot of very interesting articles on